Good day, Carlos.
Good day, Luca.
I see you're representing yes, Rick. But I don't know, dude. I think today the
We
mug
might have
goes,
won the mug war today. That's a
mug
legit.
goes the mug goes to me, dude, because unless you're eating cookies and celebrating the first mass proliferated gay couple on TV, Bert and Ernie. Shout out to Bert and Ernie. You guys made it okay to sleep in bed with your friends, no matter what sex they were. Sesame Street. Sesame Street for the win.
Cheers to Sesame Street.
How you been, man? I see
Been
you're,
good.
dude. You're getting your quarantine beard going back, dude. Nice.
Yeah, a little bit. It's a little scraggly right now. Look at yours. Yours is nice and formed.
Oh, dude, look, it finally came in. It only took. When did the quarantine start? March. It only took 4 months, dude. I finally got it all the way in.
Nice, man.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
bro, it's over, dude. It's time to just pack up and leave the United States. Except the only problem is we can't.
yeah, because the U.S. passport is now doo-doo. You can't go anywhere in the world,
Do
pretty much.
you remember when our dear sweet, strong, super smart, huge hand president was like, shithole countries can't come here?
Hmm.
Well, I don't know how he did it, but in just under 4 months since this pandemic started, he turned America into the shithole country. We, I think, are only allowed to go to something like 20 countries worldwide, most of them in the Gulf of Mexico or Mexico.
Yeah, pretty much it's like the Central America, and then there's like one country in Africa and one country in Europe.
It's pretty incredible, man. I never thought I'd see the day where an American passport, which was essentially carte blanche to do and travel wherever without a visa, no pre-screening, none of that. You just hop in line, get to where you want to go. I never thought it would be worth about as much as a passport from the old Soviet Union.
Yeah, that's how far it's gone right now, man. It's pretty bad, but the world is laughing at us.
Well, I mean,
Pretty
they've
much.
been laughing at it since about November 2016, to be honest.
But now they're laughing at us openly, pointing and just saying you can't even come here anymore.
Isn't that just an absolute joke?
Yeah, it is a joke, man. It's a joke when our
Oh,
president doesn't want to share information with the CDC or with the WHO.
oh
It's a,
yeah. How about that? And for whatever you want to say about the CDC or the WHO, because there's plenty of fault we can find in the actions they've taken, in the inactions they've taken, in their flip flopping on wearing masks, don't wear masks. But I mean, you're gonna abstain from allowing the information to even filter through those two institutions, and I'm supposed to trust you more than I trust either of those two. I i don't, because of you I can't even travel to visit family in Europe, and you want me to trust what you're telling me before I trust anybody else? Nope.
no. And he is constantly getting into like arguments, public and privately, with Fauci too.
Yeah, that's a whole
Their
other thing.
relationship, how it's been bad, it's laughable.
They're basically the divorced parents, and we're the kids trying to choose which whether we want to hang out with mom or dad. That's kind of where we're at right now. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, mom lied to us about why she broke up with dad, and dad is just an alcoholic who beats his children. So we're fucked. No matter what,
yeah.
it's over.
Either way, it's not going to end well for either person
No.
and the country.
And the only people that will really suffer at the end of it are the kids, aka 340 something million Americans. Or yeah, it's the only thing that really trickles down is bullshit. And right now, the bullshit from the top is trickling down, and we're all getting doo doo in our hair, dude.
Yeah, man. There's a movie on Netflix. It's in Spanish. It's called Platform, and it basically depicts as the top 1% always get the good stuff, and it just trickles down level by level until you get all the way to the bottom, and the bottom gets absolutely nothing, not even crumbs, and they're expected to survive.
They basically get the equivalent of hint water, where you can smell someone's cooking from down the street, but you don't get to have any of it.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
On lighter news, though, sports are coming back soon, and well, maybe, because no matter what they seem to do, even with their high-priced investments, all of the players that they've been quarantining, like Russell Westbrook tested positive for COVID.
Again, no title, love it.
I mean, we know that the Rockets are never winning anything.
Yeah,
I mean, they can win the first round of the playoffs and then lose to the Warriors every year. Forever.
Tradition. Well, besides this year won't be tradition, but
no, they'll lose in the first round to whoever they're playing. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah, dude. I mean, we'll see what happens. I think the only real sport that did it right was UFC, but they had to go and buy their own fucking island to make shit happen.
You know, I was listening to the Joe Rogan Fight Companion podcast yesterday, just like the first 20 minutes or so. And they were just talking about how it's so luxurious that they may never go back to hosting regular events. They may just do that forever.
Yeah, I've seen the videos. I've seen the drone footage of it. It's beautiful. It's too much, honestly, just for a simple UFC pay-per-view event. But hey, they're safe. And I mean, talks of Florida, the Orlando bubble or the NBA bubble, whatever it's called, it just seemed players are comparing it to doing a stint in prison. Players are saying that it's just too confined, and honestly, the cases in Florida are just astounding.
Well, when you consider California has a significantly higher population, but somehow we don't even have the highest number of cases in a single day, that delightful honor goes to Florida.
Dude.
Look, you know, everything is bigger and better in Florida, apparently. I thought that was Texas, but evidently it's that moniker has since moved 2,000 miles east to Florida.
Florida is the place where if you don't want to wear a mask during a pandemic, it's quite all right, if not encouraged.
Yes. Yeah, no. Wearing a mask is in fact anti-American, and if you're wearing a mask, you're just a communist and you need to leave the country, except you can't leave the country because we're not allowed to.
That's the funniest part.
The rest of the world said, no, we don't want you here.
Get out of my country. You can't even go anywhere.
Yeah. When will this end, man? I mean, I guess it'll end once people start to wise up and realize that wearing a mask isn't really a huge impingement on your freedoms, and all this nonsense about it lowers your O2 levels has been disproven so many times.
Yeah.
I mean, every day you have another 1,000 videos. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but basically tens, hundreds of videos that come out from nurses, surgeons, and doctors who all are wearing masks for hours and hours on end, and none of their O2 levels drop. And interestingly enough, somehow these masks are not only going to give you hypercapnia, which is CO2 poisoning, but also is not strong enough to keep the virus out, which is interesting because the size of an oxygen particle is like 250 times smaller than a COVID particle. So I don't know, dude. I don't know, man.
As soon as you start talking science, people stop listening. They're just like, I don't believe it. Science is made up.
Well, you know, I mean, they have a point, because before we knew anything about science, we sort of made shit up to explain how the world worked. And then as we started employing methods and ways in which to recreate experiments and analyzing data, yeah, you could say that everything is made up and then is backed up time and time again by numbers that support those claims. But, you know, I mean, who needs numbers when you can just have thoughts and prayers?
Oh yeah, and you have the president who just tells you nothing but facts.
Oh, but you know, I gotta give it to him. It only took 4 months. He finally wore a mask. I mean, for like 5 minutes during a photo op. But you know, hey, progress, man. progress. We can't get from A to Z without going through B, C, D, E, F, G, H, all the way down.
Without going through B and S, because that's bullshit.
No, but those are the only two letters between A and Z that he likes to land on most often would be B and S.
So, talking about the president, you had told me right before we started the podcast about a picture of him with Goya, and I didn't know that. I thought that was fake. I thought that was a meme, and apparently it's real.
Well, whether or not it's real, I'll tell you what is real, and that is the whole family are touting Goya as an American institution, and their products are great, and Goya is doing wonderful, and there's all these tweets about it. Look, I'm pretty sure that using public office to endorse products is, I'm sure there's something in the Constitution. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not a constitutional scholar, but if you go into the Constitution, I'm sure there's actually a very specific clause that says you shouldn't be using your office to promote products, especially for personal gain. And that's not to say that, he owns or his family owns a ton of stock in Goya, but just the notion that he's propping up a particular product and a particular brand screams foul play, man.
There's been so many instances where a lot of the things he's done scream foul play, but we're still here.
At the end of the day, we're only going to get rid of him in one of two ways: November of 2020 or November of 2024. Because at this point, it doesn't matter.
Or there's the third option, which we don't know what will happen, is this Ghislaine Maxwell having a certain video.
Oh my God.
Dude, the trial's not until next year.
Yeah, well.
Jeez.
They don't want to ruin the election cycle, man. They don't want to take away attention from the most important election of our lives, for sure.
It's incredible. I mean, it's set for July of next year. She wanted bail, and the judge denied it, which I don't even know how I feel about that, man. A year in jail for her. It took, Jeffrey Epstein less than a month to somehow commit suicide?
Well, I think like he was even in jail longer than that. He attempted suicide once and was unsuccessful. And then the second time he was extra successful. He somehow broke his hyoid bone, which according to medical data is really only possible if you're putting a lot of pressure on it. So the fact that he was able to lean forward from his bed apparently and commit suicide that way, but also break his hyoid bone to physicians is a little bit of a red flag. But I will say the guy was in his late 60s, and your bones are not as strong as they are in their 60s as they are in your 30s. So I think that's a little bit more of a smokescreen to make it seem like somebody snuck into his room in the middle of the night and fucking killed him. I just think, honestly, I don't care how he died, but the only bit of frustration I have is now we have to rely on Ghislaine Maxwell to divulge all the information of his conspirators and the folks who like to use his particular service of procuring young talent for massages, among other things.
Massages? Yeah. Dude, I don't care that he would have survived or not. What I care about was what was going to come to light. What was he going to say? Not only about Prince Andrew, not Donald Trump, but the 1%, that population of millionaires and billionaires that knew him. That's what I wanted to know. And I mean, that's what Ghislaine Maxwell has supposedly said, that she does have videos of politicians.
I hope so, man.
Which ones, we don't know, but
I wouldn't be surprised, because in order to keep herself safe, she needs to have some sort of
something.
Yeah. You need to have a bargaining chip when your life is on the line, right? So if she doesn't have that sort of information hidden away somewhere, then she's as good as dead anyways. So I think that there's got to be a treasure trove of videos, of pictures, of transcripts, whatever, that will point the finger directly at a lot of very powerful and influential people. And I cannot stress enough how imperative it is for that to come to the forefront of this whole situation, because until we tear down the establishment that is enabling these sorts of bad actors to continue to proliferate their misdeeds, we're going to just be spinning our wheels. And we need this change, man. We need these people that keep getting away with these horrible actions to get torn down top to bottom.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that she wanted to fight for bail when she had bought a property in New York under a surname, and the lawyers said that this is because she wanted to hide from the press. Bullshit. Police went, when they found the property, went and they saw her in the window. She had wrapped tinfoil around her cell phone because her defense didn't want the press to get a hold of her location by using the cell phone, which sounds to me like she's trying to hide from the government, but whatever.
Dude, to be fair, I've worn a tinfoil hat before and I felt so protected.
That is true. My head did feel like there was no 5G waves coming in.
The 5G was not effective. I was totally safe. In fact,
But
I may just like buy some tinfoil underwear so that way they can't, ruin my genetic makeup. You know what I mean?
dude, you're protecting the genes there.
Oh, protecting the genes underneath my jeans.
But I mean, it's crazy, man. She is so well connected. She knows pilots. She has 3 different passports, and the fact that the lawyers are saying that she's not a flight risk, given how important this case is, it's astounding, man. It's astounding how people who have done such horrible things or accused of such horrible things still try to work the system.
But it just kind of goes to show, man, how many levels deep do you think this small, I mean, I would assume it's small, but small yet far-reaching cohort of pedophiles or fanboys and fangirls of, if not underage, right at the cusp of like the legal age of consent. How deep does this rabbit hole go, man? And why do we keep finding more names that keep popping up that hold high positions of power? At what point do you get so rich and powerful that you feel the need to engage in this sick and horrible act of procuring children and underage women? And I'm assuming there's probably underage boys within that same paradigm. How does this stuff keep happening?
So that's the kind of an interesting point. I had heard about what the hell is this guy? Alex Jones, right? He had done like an undercover thing where he went into a cult that was, filled with millionaires, people of high power, different companies, and they were praying to an owl god. They were doing human sacrifice, which was fake, but you can't really prove if it's real or fake. And it's just this secret society that these people of power hold, that they think that it either grants them more power, it gives them more influence. Even in the Jeffrey Epstein documentary, there's a moment where he threatens a girl, saying he knows a voodoo doctor who is gonna put a spell on the unborn kid that she was carrying, and all this stuff. And for a person who is as wealthy as that guy was, to start spewing out of the mouth witch doctor, voodoo doctor, spells, all that stuff, it's crazy to think that that's kind of their mentality of where they sit. And maybe that's what leads to the next thing, maybe it's a fountain of youth scenario type of thing. And I think it just spreads. As soon as you get that wealthy, money isn't really one of your priorities anymore. Then you start going into the mystic stuff, which is the weird things.
Yeah, and I mean, it's as disgusting as it is for us to think about how common practice this is among people that have that sort of power and wealth. It wasn't so many hundreds of years ago that, and it was wrong then, it's wrong now, but back in the days of ancient Rome and ancient Greece, you had grooming even during those times as well. So back in the old days of ancient Rome, the Senate would groom young boys to be effectively their playmates, and eventually they would hold seats within the Senate after being groomed. And the same thing with the Spartan warriors. They would oftentimes be paired with a young boy, and it wasn't necessarily implicit that they were doing sexual misdeeds to these young boys, but I mean, given how things are now among these really rich and powerful people, I can't imagine that wasn't more commonplace back then than it is now. The only difference is now there's even more money and power to try and hide these things from public view.
Yeah, it's been going on throughout human history, to be quite honest. And I don't know what the connection is, but it's disgusting, man. It sucks that people who hold this much power, there's like this common thread where something about underage kids, something about cults, something about, I mean, the rabbit hole goes really deep down to like human sacrifices, to abducting children, to selling children, to Jeffrey Epstein, to Ghislaine Maxwell.
Well, I mean, even in, I don't want to say cults, but even in groups like the Freemasons or the Illuminati, you have at certain levels, ritual sacrifices from people that, either divulge information they shouldn't have or brought negative press or whatever to the group. I mean, these groups do have a weird connection to the occult, to Satanism, or specifically Lucifer, I should say, which is interesting that Lucifer gets a bad rap because it literally means bringer of light. But anyways, like that's a whole other animal. But It's interesting that these groups almost all have an upper echelon, an upper tier, where there is an inherent connection to ritual sacrifice. And then if you dig even deeper, even the notion that drinking the blood of a young child or an infant is almost like drinking from the Holy Grail, where you get eternal youth or something to that effect. And it's in almost any secret society you have this rampant belief. And of course, when you ask the people within it, they're no, we're a club where we talk about political things and we try and work with each other and whatever. But it's like, how is it not at least plausible that there is a narrative that permeates through all of these different groups where sacrificing and the abuse of children to an extent is almost ubiquitous across all of these different groups?
Yeah, I don't know. It's mind blowing, man. I don't know if at some certain point when you hit your first $1 million, you just get a text from someone or something. Hey, come to this party real quick in the woods at my cabin mansion, and it just goes from there. But yeah, it's incredible that this always seems to just be this top society that has this idea where it either started hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago and they got their hands on a book or an idea, but it spreads like a virus between them. And I mean, I'm not saying that every single millionaire or billionaire is bad, but you always have a group of people that aren't quite all there, but as soon as they hear, oh, what are you guys into? What are you guys doing? And it just spreads from there. They start creating these sex rings. They start creating these cults or these groups or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
People in power. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see what exactly Ghislaine Maxwell has, what videos she has, and who's really a part of it. But just going off the Jeffrey Epstein thing, I mean, the network of power for people that knew him and were in contact with both of them is astounding. And somehow, some way, nobody saw anything bad going on at that moment.
Yeah.
That's the craziest part. I mean, Bill Clinton was there, 25 times?
Yeah, 25, 26 times.
And although he didn't do anything bad, according to the girls, he never saw anything bad going on. It makes no sense.
I think we can all safely say that established families like the Clintons, probably the Bushes, there's some underlying substrate that enables these people to maintain their seat at the table for generations, and you have to be willing to do the dirtiest of dirt in order to maintain those positions, because if you can't have something to hold over someone else, then you're going to get kicked off that table pretty quickly. So I think all these folks that are in that top 1%, I don't mean 1% in terms of like wealth, but in terms of just influence and power, which I think is even, it's even worse than the people who have billions of dollars like a Jeff Bezos or a Bill Gates. It's the folks that have lineal family wealth and lineal family power that are really at the apex of these dark organizations that effectively control how the world operates.
Yeah.
You know? Dude, have you been following the Wayfair shit?
Yeah. It's
Dude, they're going after Tom Hanks.
Are they really?
Yeah.
For what?
Dude, because he posted an image in like 2018 of a glove and like a shoelace or something, and they're saying that. Hold on, let me. Dude, let me share this thing.
A glove and a shoelace. Oh boy.
Oh, dude, it's right here. This is it, man. They're coming for him. Tom Hanks. First, he was stuck on an island with Wilson. Now he's ordering children through Wayfair.
What?
Yeah. Social media users looking to find a celebrity to rope into the bogus Wayfair child trafficking conspiracy have found one. Tom Hanks was involved in some way because of an Instagram photo he published. 2016. One aspect of this theory claims that the product SKUs can be used to find photos of young girls on a Russian search engine, which is how Hanks is allegedly linked. The whole story started on July 9th when a Reddit user theorized that the industrial strength cabinets, which cost thousands of dollars on the Wayfair website, were being used to sell children. As Wayfair said, there's no truth, blah, blah, blah. This is the image that Tom Hanks posted. Dirty glove, SRC USA. I guess a
String, maybe?
thing, a noose. I don't know. Yeah. So this is, I guess, what they're focusing on. Hanks shared a picture of a glove lying on the ground in Red Bluff, California. Give me 5, Hanks wrote on the caption. On the ground next to the glove appears to read SRC USA. I don't even know what they. All right. Comments. Blah 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 blah.
Company said in a statement for. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a crazy link, but.
Well, so I did some digging about really expensive cabinets because apparently it's only Wayfair that sells really expensive cabinets. So I went to Granger, and they sell a lot of tools and supplies for do-it-yourselfers and businesses alike. They have $10,000 cabinets. I mean, are they also selling kids? Are they in some sort of
so the
black market child sales along with Wayfair? Are these guys working together?
I mean, at first it started like this. It said the first conspiracy was Wayfair, for some reason, had these cabinets that were severely overpriced and being sold for $10,000 to $20,000. Then it came out that these were industrial sized cabinets, and that checked out. The next part was the names of the cabinets linked to names of missing children. And that was where this kind of just took off and was just like, sex
Look,
trafficker.
I'm certain that there are kids that are being taken and sold, but I don't think it's being done by fucking Wayfair. What I think is happening is and this is, I think, extremely more likely, is that there are either cartels or really dark organizations in South and Central America that are using the opportunity to sell kids into some form of slavery, whether it's sex slavery, whether it's labor slavery. I don't think this is a Wayfair issue. I think it's more like, if you use Occam's razor, which is the notion that until you get irrefutable evidence, you should always go with the most simple explanation. I think it's more simple that kids are being stolen, they are being abducted, but it's not being done by Wayfair and they're not being distributed in giant industrial cabinets to people. I think it's far more likely that you have groups like MS-13 that are abducting these kids or adults, young adults, and forcing them into some sort of servitude. That's far more likely, and far more like, there's a far more direct link between MS-13 and proliferating the slave trade, than it is that Wayfair somehow is selling kids in industrial boxes all across the world. That to me, until someone, and maybe I'm naive, and I'm willing to admit that I could possibly be entirely naive on this, but until someone orders one of these cases and accidentally gets a child inside or a human inside, I'm not sold, man.
Yeah, I mean that's the other point. It's these industrial sized cabinets, whatever it is, the official name. But imagine a business who's a legitimate business, a tech company who wants to buy one of these industrial things. I just don't see how Wayfair can say this is going to be for child sex trafficking, and know how to depict which business or which order is for who.
I think so. I think also the line between the names of these cabinets and the kids that have gone missing, I do think that is incredibly eyebrow raising. I'm not here to say that that isn't odd, but as someone who's worked at various retail outlets my entire young adult and adult life, I've worked at places where they have products that have weird names of what easily could be a kid's name. Like, I worked at World Market for a while, and they have all kinds of furniture that had names that you could feasibly give to a child or a human.
Yeah.
So I don't think that just because Wayfair has these particular cabinets that have these particular names, strange, yes, odd, yes, possibly eyebrow raising, absolutely. But is that really Wayfair's endgame? It's more likely that Wayfair is doing this than it is that MS-13 or some other drug cartel is abducting these kids and putting them into slavery themselves. Like, is that not more likely? Am I just stupid?
I think personally, I think the only reason why this conspiracy theory is still being talked about and shared and mass followed is because of the connection between Wayfair and
Ghislaine Maxwell. Well, dude, I think that's part of it too, right? Because this picture, do you see my screen?
Yeah.
So the picture on the right, this is a picture that has been going around through the Reddit subcategories, their conspiracy categories, as quote unquote irrefutable evidence that Ghislaine Maxwell, allegedly with Bill Hutchinson, the head of operations at Wayfair. First and foremost, there is no president of operations. So Wayfair doesn't have a president of operations. So even if you want to say that, well, of course they're going to say they don't have a president of operations because they wouldn't want you to know this, right? So this guy on the right, first of all, his name isn't Bill Hutchinson. Second of all, he doesn't work for Wayfair. Third of all, he owns a high-end watch company, which I think makes perfect sense, right? Because Ghislaine Maxwell, as disgusting of a person as she is, she lives a lavish lifestyle. She likes to have nice, expensive things. So, I don't know if hanging out with industrial cabinet makers is in her arsenal, but hanging out with a jeweler or a watchmaker, I think, is a far more plausible connection. So
Yeah,
there's that.
it's funny, man. The fact that they tie it to the ICE detention centers, the fact that they tie it to ICE detention centers, have missing kids and that they're using Wayfair to sell them. It's kind of a stretch, but it's those little string theories that just really have people going, you can't explain that. You can't explain that. But I mean, come on, man. It's just very improbable that Wayfair is running a sex trafficking right in front of the world. Not even just a couple people, in front of the world, in front of different businesses who buy these cabinets, buy these whatever, and don't get children in their boxes.
Yeah, so I guess these are the two folks, Maddie and Justin Thompson, that helped prop up this theory. I guess they spent $17,000 on a bunch of expensive pillows and cabinets from Wayfair, but I guess to their surprise, there wasn't a child inside. So, but that didn't disprove their theory, man. That just means Wayfair is onto their shenanigans.
I guess so. I mean, it's funny how conspiracy theories just come about. Some are kind of interesting. Some are, too many coincidences, but some are just fucking just loony.
Yeah. I think part of the problem is that people today in general don't want to trust institutions, especially when they have a very large amount of influence. They immediately want to attack the institutions because they have an inherent distrust of government and people in power that are telling them to do things for one reason or another. And I think that sort of thinking, as we talked about in our last get together 4 or 5 days ago, is sort of the reason why you have anti-vax theories taking off and why you have people thinking that somehow a vaccine is a way in which for Bill Gates to implement his wide-scale microchipping thought.
Yeah.
And I think part of this too, man, is like when you have a lot of time on your hands, when you're sitting at home because of a quarantine, when you're not allowed to go outside and do the things you normally would do, you have a lot of time to, I think and overthink situations. And you take a theory that is totally a reasonable theory about, MS-13 is stealing kids and selling them into slavery, and you extrapolate that to, well, Wayfair had a huge government contract to sell beds to detention centers, and now all of a sudden those same detention centers are where kids are disappearing. So obviously that must mean Wayfair is involved in sex trafficking. When you have a lot of time on your hands, I mean, it's, you know that old saying, idle hands are the devil's workshop, right? So, I mean, the more time you have on your hands, the more you're going to start getting into these really deep, cavernous, dark places, and you're going to start ascribing your own preconceived notions about how much you hate institutions, and you're going to sort of paste that over anything you see.
Yeah. And if anything, people nowadays have more time on their hands than they've ever had in their life.
What's funny is, by extension, with this whole Wayfair thing, people are going after this guy. He's a really nice really nice attacking point, George Soros. What's funny is when I was going deep into this Wayfair shit, there were a bunch of different people posting on Reddit and other places about how George Soros is behind this because he has a bunch of money invested in Wayfair and this and that. So I actually went to, I still have it up. I actually went to there's a website. It's like Invest Guru or something that you can type someone's name and it'll show you what kind of holdings they have. So I went there, and he has no holdings in Wayfair at all. There is no George Soros Wayfair holdings that I could find. And that's not to say that maybe he doesn't have it through some sort of blind trust, or maybe has someone else investing for him in Wayfair, but just based on the few sources that I was able to navigate through, there is no George Soros Wayfair connection. And on top of that, as you might hate George Soros as a person. You might, people have their reasons why, but like, I was reading the backstory on this guy, and like, he was basically a Hungarian Jew who basically during the Holocaust worked with his resources to help try and get people out of Germany during that time period. So I don't understand like how this guy has generated so much hatred across the world. And like, do I trust him? No. He looks like a ghost. He looks like somebody who would get one over on you if he could. But just based on the information you can find, he's basically a punching bag for all these weird conspiracy theories. But like when you look at like what the guy has done, I don't understand the hatred for him.
I mean, the hatred, I don't know, people just like to pick a name out of a hat, and if they can loosely, again, just loosely tie a string to two dots, it just gains so much traction. Let me share something real quick. My friend shared this this meme that I think sums it up so well as to how people are taking this. Let me see. Let me share my screen, homie.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I don't know, man. People are just out of their minds sometimes.
Dude, sometimes or all the time?
Most of the time. I know I'm out of my mind most of the time. All right, do your thing.
Dope. All right. It's this picture right here. Remember this guy? 2013, he made a deal with Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi to patent a cure for something referred to as CV19.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know what was coming. What are they hiding? Also, nope, none of this. I'm absolutely lying. That's a stock photo I made in 5 minutes. I even aged it up to make it look like it had been passed around a lot. Stop getting your news from memes. Good Lord. People get information from memes and they think it's real. They don't do the extracurricular activity, which is just do a fucking Google search and just do a little bit more research than what you just see really fast for 5 seconds.
Totally. I mean, I think part of the problem though is when you have someone who is already willing to just dive off the deep end when it comes to stuff like this, there's no way they're going to trust what a Google search will yield. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's crazy that, I mean, I've had people who tell me like, oh, did you hear about this? And my thing is to just do a quick Google search, just, see what's all about. And most of the time it's just myth, conspiracy theory, not real. And people just don't take that one extra second to really find news. They just rely on what other people, friends, share on their Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and they take that to heart. They take that as this is the only fact.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are easily victim to confirmation bias, and I mean, I mean that's not even to say that I'm not. I think we always try to find people whose viewpoints most match our own, but I think you also have to be willing to admit that you don't know everything, and the people that are posting these things probably don't know everything. And if you're willing to die on your sword for something that is wrought with incomplete information and anecdotes versus actual studies done, because you can always find an anecdotal story where a vaccine possibly killed somebody.
Right.
But an anecdote is not indicative of that's an exception to the rule rather than the rule itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important that in order to be a good steward of learning and growth, you need to be willing to admit that you don't know everything and understand that when someone is presenting information to you, to be receptive to it. You can still refute it with your own facts and your own evidence, but to immediately dismiss it without having a conversation is just as bad as believing everything the WHO says at face value, just as bad as it is as believing everything Donald Trump says at face value, which is just as bad as everything as Big Pharma tells you at face value. Like these things aren't inextricably different from each other. You have to be a good shepherd and steward of gathering information and drawing conclusions from it. And to just accept what anyone tells you with 100%, with 100% like belief is a horrible way to go about it. It's like with me and the whole COVID thing. When it first came out, I thought there was absolutely no possible way that this was created in a lab. I didn't believe that this was anything other than a mutation that happens naturally in the wild. But the more you read about the evidence, the more you read about these level 4 biolabs that exist basically in 2 places on the planet that study these particular coronaviruses. One existed 100 feet away from the Wuhan market. This particular place has both bats and pangolins inside it. And that's not, again, that's not to say that it was created as a bioweapon, but just that the existence of this lab and the existence of this lab containing these particular animals, that they weren't in close contact with each other, and that it isn't possible that this virus couldn't have mutated and accidentally been released from a lab, I think is just as silly as thinking there's no chance that it only came from nature or vice versa.
Right. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there, man. It's confirmation bias. It's just people that as soon as they hear something, they want to believe it. And in today's day and age, it's going on across everything. It's not only just conspiracy theories. It's not only face masks and coronavirus. It could be anything with politics too. It can be anything with just the day itself. They hear one thing and it's like a virus. They spread it to everybody. They say, hey, did you hear about this? Of course it's true. Or did you hear about this? And it's like, oh, where did you get that, link? Where did you get that that article? And most of the time it'll be, oh, I saw it through a friend, or I saw it on TMZ, or TMZ shared this post. And most of the time it's just a fucking opinion piece, or most of the time it's not even anything that holds water.
Yeah.
But we live in the day and age where people just need to feel informed but don't do research.
Yeah, and I think people love to exist within their own echo chambers.
Mm-hmm.
People don't want to do their own research. They want to have a belief and they want to have it validated by sources or friends or quote unquote professionals or whomever. And instead of being willing to admit there could be nuances that will change the way you think about something, people would rather focus on what confirms their preconceived notions versus actually having a discussion and evolving your concept on a particular situation as more information becomes available. And I think that is a bigger problem than anything. That's a bigger problem than disinformation. That's a bigger problem than misinformation. It's this desire for people to quarantine themselves within a niche and never waver from that position. And if you're not willing to have a good faith discussion and admit that you could be swayed one way or the other when given information, that's worse than either of the other.
Yeah, you're not really growing at all. I mean, just to stay in your lane, basically, and just say, like, I believe that 5G is real. And when people say, okay, well, let's talk about it a little bit, it's like, no, I know what I know. I saw one thing, and I have this group of friends who all think exactly like me. And they get into this feeling like, just because I'm validated by like 2 people, I'm correct, you're wrong, you can't change my mind. And society right now can't be like that, but that's where we're at.
I think as an extension, that is the problem with identity politics, man, is that nobody wants to allow you the flexibility for movement. You
Mhm.
have to ascribe to all of the particulars of a particular section, of a particular group, of a particular identity, and you're not given the latitude to say, okay, I am for women's rights and for pro-abortion rights and body rights, but you can't say that in the same breath of, I'm also a Second Amendment advocate and I want everyone to have guns. It's almost like once you've decided you are this group or that group, you can't waver from it. And if you are, you will be ostracized by both groups.
I mean, you either go pick one thing and pretty much everything else trickles down to all other subjects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a survival mechanism, man, because humans evolved as tribes. We evolved as groups of individuals that banded together in order to meet a common goal that would benefit everybody. And we've gotten to the point now where there are so many subgroups where everyone thinks they have the idea that will make them right or make them safest or make them, whatever the case may be. And those are where I think we're getting lost within, is that people are willing to do this without having these good faith discussions with other people, and they're not willing to move the needle for themselves in any particular direction. They just want to hold on to their believed truths, and they won't let go for anything.
I mean, where do you think people are getting this idea? I wonder who in power acts like this, where as soon as they get some information, they don't want to hear any other information, and all other information might be fake news.
I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole, bro.
I mean, it's yeah, that's the society we live in right now. And whether I can make a joke about it being the president who's acting like this all the time, or so on and so forth.
Let me ask you this, man. Do you think that it's hopeless?
Man, I don't know about hopeless, but it is very dim. Because exactly of that, man. You have people who, to this, Trump supporters will defend Trump no matter what. And it doesn't matter any instigations. It doesn't matter any allegations.
And by the same token, Democrats will castigate and lambaste Trump for anything. And a perfect example is both congressional Republicans and Democrats at this moment in time are trying to keep him from withdrawing all of our troops from Afghanistan. Now, whatever you want to say about Trump as a person, as an individual, as a leader of the free world, I'm for that. I don't want, our troops don't need to be somewhere where they're A, not wanted, and B, should have never been in the first place.
Well, see, right there, I'm pretty sure 60% of the population would be after you, because you just said, oh, this one thing that Trump did is good. Automatically, all your other beliefs, everything else you said is false, which shouldn't be the case.
No, it's unfortunate that people can't have a varied and measured take on these issues. When George Bush first sent all of our troops over there, you had the same 60% of people saying, how could he be doing this? How could he do this? How could he do this? Now, 20 years later, we have a president who, look, I don't like the guy. I think he's a horrible leader. I don't think he's fit to hold the highest office in the world.
Correct.
But do I agree with him that we should take our troops out of the Middle East? Yeah. I mean, if you want to work with local governments and maybe have a small contingency there to help them through navigating the rebuilding process, fine. But in terms of actually occupying those places, we don't need to be there, and we're not wanted there. And in fact, in a lot of ways, we're making the situation worse, it seems.
Yeah, we're exacerbating the situation. But again, that thinking right there, that's fine. That should be accepted on a national level. Just people who hate Trump basically hate everything he's about, any decision he makes. And that shouldn't be the case. It should be more of an informed decision. Like, yes, he is a horrible person. Yes, he might be involved in, these allegations with underage girls. Yes, he could be doing, shady deals with Russia. He could, whatever. But the fact is, that doesn't discredit good decisions he does make. And
we don't live in a vacuum is the problem. People want to just believe that things are this way and they can only be that way and not any other way, which is so juvenile in thinking that it's almost not even worth having a discussion with somebody who is so chained to their beliefs and their preconceived notions that anything that even remotely seems to tickle the veneer of that belief system is immediately seen as an attack on their character, and they will start engaging in ad hominem attacks and saying, well, you support Trump, you're racist, you're this, you're that. It's like, no, I don't support Trump. Honestly, I don't support Biden either. But between the two of them, I'm voting for the giant meteor in 2020. I'm just hoping that from the ground up, a meteor just comes and takes shit out so we can start over again, man, because that's the only hope we have. They're both horrible.
Yeah, there's only, like you said, the two options, November 2020 or November 2024.
Honestly, if people get smart and wise up, there are third-party options you can vote for. And what they don't realize is that if the people that are so deeply dismayed by Trump and Biden would all just pool their resources and vote for the third party that they most believe in. Because the thing about the Electoral College is it's an all or nothing game. The game theory is as long as you win more of a percentage than anyone else, even if you don't win a majority, right? If you win 42% to 41% to 5% to on and on and on, that 42% gets all electoral votes.
Mm-hmm.
So this zero-sum game of winner take all, loser get nothing is sort of the paradigm that we're in that you have to ascribe your belief system to that or else you lose.
It's, yeah. I mean, going back to that question, is it hopeless? It's not hopeless, but it's very dim.
Yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably at like a 2.
Pretty much.
A 2 or maybe a 3. Some days I feel like a 3. Some days I feel like a 1.5. So we'll go with 2 for the time being.
It comes to the point where if you hope for a giant meteor to start over, that's where.
I think just like in 2016, I may do a write-in vote for Harambe again.
Dude, you got to bring Harambe back for the vote.
Dude, fuck that little kid that got him killed. Sorry, little kid. Shouldn't be jumping in gorilla cages.
Man, I remember that. Poor Harambe.
He was just chilling in his house. Dude, he was basically a dude hanging out or a woman hanging out at home, minding his own business. Someone broke into his house. He defended himself and got murdered.
Yeah.
I mean, not to draw parallels to how the police sometimes interact with the public, but anyways. Well, on that note, man, I appreciate you taking the time to get up this morning, having a little discussion with your boy.
Dude, coffee and discussions.
Dude.
That should be the new
Sesame Street, bro.
That should be the new segment. Coffee and discussion.
Coffee confessions.
Coffee confessions. Ooh.
All right, brother.
All right, man.
Take care, dude. I'll catch you later.
Take care, man.